So hello everyone, and welcome to my Winter 545 class at Stony Brook University. And I just wanted to go over a couple slides with you, just to prepare everybody, do a little preview here, okay? So this is chapter 1, and it's basically sets the boilerplate up for everybody. So we're going to look at the workings, basically, of financial markets in the United States, and bond markets, stock markets, and foreign exchange. Everyone heard of, I assume, right? Foreign exchange is the transfer of one type of money for the other. If you travel, you probably know that you have to get let's say if you go to Russia, you got to get rubles for dollars, or you got to get euros if you go to the Eurozone for dollars, and vice versa. So we'll look at how financial institutions such as banks, investment and insurance companies work, and in general we'll look at money, how money rolls through the economy, right? And the money financial markets are real important for the economy. As everyone knows, we've had a wonderful 10-year run, over 10 years now, since the 2008 crash, the financial crash from mortgages. If you don't have much of a background on what happened, or if you were too young to remember, it's best to go back and review the the crash of 2008. It makes for great reading. And we'll look at my monetary policy set by the Fed, and business cycle and economic variables, and how exchange rates and interest rates are coupled. Interest rates and exchange rates are coupled via interest rate parity. We'll go through that, right? And if you have any career aspirations, you could become a chartered financial analyst or a certified financial planner. Or you may want to just trade on Wall Street or become a broker, but there's a lot of available things. All right, so financial markets, right? Simply, funds are basically transferred from people and firms such as mutual funds, right? Who have an excess of available funds, and they have to be rewarded, and they put it in a bank or they put it in a mutual fund, and they will get either interest rates or an increase in their stocks if they, like I do, buy stocks. And then people who need money will borrow money from banks, let's say, and to get a loan, if to buy a car or student loans or whatever. So there's always a transfer of funds back and forth between people who have excess and people who are in need of it. All right, so the bond market is simply a loan, right? So a security, in general, a security is a claim on the issuer's future income or assets, right? So if I buy a bond or I buy stock, I have a claim on whatever the value of that is in the future if it goes up, right? Or even if I buy a CD in a bank, I have a claim that whatever the interest rate may be. All right, so a bond is basically a debt instrument, and they're going to make you what's called interest rate or coupon payments, let's say every 6 months, for the life of the bond, which will eventually mature depending on what the indenture says. So when you get a bond, you'll get all the information with regard to the maturity of the bond, how much interest it's going to pay. Now, once the coupon is set in the indenture or in the contract, it will stay like that forever. So an interest rate that you'll get is basically the cost of borrowing or the price paid for the rental of funds. If you're renting funds, you're going to a bank, basically, right? And they're going to rent your money, and they're going to pay you in return. So they're going to pay you some money back for renting your money. All right, so here is the interest rate on different types of bonds over the last, I guess, 67 years. So here's government bonds. Government bonds are treasuries, right? Treasury securities. And here's the 3-month T-bill. This is typically long-term, let's say 30 years. Here's the 3-month short-term T-bill. Now the T-bill, the T-bill doesn't pay interest payments. It's a deep discount bond, which we'll talk about later. And here's corporate bonds, right? And you notice that this has got a rating of BAA. Bonds are rated by Moody's and Standard & Poor's depending on their credit worthiness. And again, you have all these links here, which you can find right here. All right, so then there's the stock market, right? And the stock market has common stock, and it basically, as you all know, you become an owner, and you're allowed to vote, and you may or may not get a dividend depending on the stock. So you have to do your research and find out if you're, going to get a dividend, if you're going to receive one. And you'll have, you could buy shares, one share, or some people are in Robinhood and they buy percentages of shares, and you can get a dividend over that periodically. All right, so here's a nice figure which shows you stock prices over the last 67 years. And once again, I don't know why I keep fooling with these. And you'll notice how stock prices have gone up. Let me get out of there. Okay. So you can see how this is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is a measure of 30 stocks, and it's gone up. And you can see the last 20 years or 25 years or so, it's really accelerated. Here's the crash. You see that? Here's the crash right there. That occurred in 2008, right? So that was a good time to buy. I lost about $300,000 then, but buy low, sell high. So I bought in. And I've been rewarded the last 10 or 12 years. All right, so financial intermediaries are either banks, right, who take deposits, your money if you have excess, and make loans, and they have to reward you with interest rates, which are not high these days, which is why people opt for mutual funds in the stock market. You always want to beat inflation, right? And, that's probably the smartest thing you can do. If you're young, you want to take risk, and you're not going to get rich putting money in banks. All right, so basically a lot of new products have come up, and with the internet, we've got internet banking and internet mortgages, and you can get a lot of, a lot of banking done on web. Now, in fact, I do all my banking through different credit unions and banks online, and I'm sure you're all aware of that. Okay, so here's what I was referring to a little while ago. There was a financial crisis in 2008, and what it is when there's a disruption in financial markets, and it seems like every 10 years we have a major financial crisis if you go back in history, and asset prices really take a tumble, and a lot of financial and non-financial firms really take a tumbling, and it's actually a good time to buy. So, why do we study money and monetary policy? Because basically money is defined as anything that is generally accepted as payment for goods or services, or the repayment of debts, and they play an important role in the business cycle. And as you know, recessions and expansions affect everybody. Everyone's worried there's going to be a recession coming, but it looks like the market is still rolling, and we seem to be having an extended recession over the last decade or so. So, as you know, the Fed is always tinkering with interest rates, lowering them or raising them depending on the state of the economy. And basically, monetary theory, as controlled by the Fed, ties whatever changes in the money supply, M1 or M2, to changes in aggregate economic activity and the price level of the dollar, let's say, and interest rates. Money and interest rates are intimately tied together. And basically, the aggregate prices, the consumer price index, the average price of goods and services. And, as we talked about previously, there's inflation, which is a rise in price level, which is not good, and the Fed will try to control that by raising interest rates and vice versa. So the money supply, which is a function of interest rates and the price level of items, is all intimately tied together. And as I said, here is the money growth, and this is M2. And here's the business cycle. And I believe these dark lines are recessions. Okay, you can see the recessions, and you can see the money growth dropping with each recession. If you look at the blue curve and these grayish lines here, so you see here's a recession. Look at the money drop. Here's the famous one in 08. Okay, and look at the money growth drop, right? So, and then, but again, there's always a bounce back. So it's actually a very good time to buy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm about halfway through these slides now. I don't want to make videos longer than 10 minutes because they get very cumbersome and large in bite size. So, and they take long to upload. So I'll be doing it like a part 1 and a part 2. Okay? Alrighty, talk to you later.